Okay, so you're itching to start using your camera's RAW files and taking advantage of all that extra quality. To open them up from the main Photoshop window, we just go to File, down to Open, choose the RAW file that we want to use, press the Open button, and then this happens. What on earth is going on? Surely RAW is supposed to make your life easier and your pictures better, not create new problems. Why can't anything be simple? Well, you can stop tearing your hair out now, because in this lesson we'll look at how to get your camera's RAW files working with your version of Photoshop. And the best news is, success is guaranteed, because even if your version of Photoshop can't be updated to support your camera, there's a quick, simple and free workaround. Here we're attempting to open an NEF RAW file from a Nikon D80. But the compatibility problem is something that can affect all cameras, because even those from the same manufacturer produce subtly different RAW files, and a RAW converter, like Photoshop's, needs to be specially engineered to decode each and every one. Therefore, if you own a camera that's a lot more modern than your version of Photoshop, you're likely to experience problems when trying to open its RAW files. Thankfully though, the solution is simple. Either update your version of Photoshop CS, CS2 or CS3 by installing a free plugin from the Adobe website, or if that fails to work, just make use of Adobe's free DNG converter, which will turn your camera's RAW files into a format that Photoshop can understand. We'll come onto the DNG converter a little later, but the first thing to do if your RAW files aren't working is make sure you've got the latest Camera Raw update for your version of Photoshop. This is the ideal fix, as it means that your pictures will open straight into Photoshop without being converted. So let's find out how it's done. Before you start downloading half the internet trying to find the right file, let's identify the most recent Camera Raw update that your version of Photoshop will support. If you have version CS, you'll need to get Camera Raw 2.4. While Photoshop CS2 can use versions up to Camera Raw 3.7. Photoshop CS3, meanwhile, will be able to use every new update until it itself is superseded by a newer version. The next thing to do is to find out which version of Camera Raw your copy of Photoshop is currently using. And you can do this just by going to the Help menu, picking About Plugin, and then clicking on Camera Raw. We're using Photoshop CS2, and in this window we can see that we have Camera Raw version 3.1 installed. That means we need to upgrade. To do this, just log on to the Adobe website at www.adobe.com/Camera Raw. And then search for the version you need. In the case of Photoshop CS2, that's Camera Raw 3.7. So just find that file and download it to your PC. Right, here we are on the desktop and we've downloaded Camera Raw 3.7. Open the file and you'll find the Camera Raw plugin itself inside. But the Camera Raw update isn't like a regular file that you can double click and expect to work by itself. You need to first move it to the right folder on your PC before it will function. To do this, we first need to make sure that Photoshop is closed down, and then double click on the My Computer icon. Next, double click on the C drive to open that up, and then to find the right place to put the Camera Raw plugin, we'll navigate through Program Files, Common Files, Adobe, Plugins, CS2, and File Formats. The location isn't quite the same on all versions of Photoshop, but there are PDF instructions for CS and CS3 users included with this lesson. Once you've located the correct folder, you'll probably find that there's a Camera Raw plugin already there. The best thing to do is move this to a safe area on your PC, rather than deleting it or overwriting it. So just make a new folder on your desktop, and we can call it Old Camera Raw, and then click and drag the old Camera Raw plugin into that. Next up, copy the new Camera Raw plugin into the File Formats folder, and then we can close these windows down. Open up Photoshop CS2, and assuming that the plugin is recent enough, and it will be for this Nikon D80 RAW file, the image will open into the Camera Raw interface without any problems at all. So as you can see, it really is easy to update your version of Photoshop with the correct Camera Raw file. Later on, we'll have a look at the actual process of converting a RAW, but for now, let's close down this file and take a look at how to get RAWs working even if they can't be decoded by your version of Photoshop. Right, if you've updated to the latest version of Camera Raw for your copy of Photoshop and your RAW files are still doing this, it's either time to upgrade to a newer version of Photoshop, which could be expensive, or start thinking DNG, which thankfully costs nothing at all. DNG, or digital negative to use its proper name, is an open standard for RAW files, one that's designed for all RAW converters to read. This makes it possible for older versions of Photoshop to open the RAW files from more modern cameras that they wouldn't normally be able to support. For instance, though you can get a Camera Raw update to make your Canon EOS 350D's RAW files work in Photoshop CS2, that Camera Raw update won't function in CS. But the DNG converter is a standalone program that simply turns a RAW file into a common format so it can be read by CS. Just download the latest version from the Adobe website. You'll find it alongside the Camera Raw updates. And, assuming your camera is supported, which most are, you simply tell the converter which files to turn into DNGs, where to save the new versions, and hit OK. Moments later, you'll be enjoying full RAW functionality just like you'd get from the original files. You can open DNG files using any version of Camera Raw from 2.4 onwards, meaning they're compatible with CS, CS2 and CS3. Let's take a quick look at how the DNG converter functions. I've downloaded the latest version to my desktop, and unlike the Camera Raw plugin, all you need to do to get the Adobe DNG converter up and running is double-click on it. Then simply select the folder of RAW files that you want to convert. We'll pick this one here called KS, where our non-functioning RAW file is sitting. Press select, and then you can choose where to save your converted files, be it in a new folder or in the same location, what you want to call the converted files, and then simply press convert. A window will appear showing you how the conversion process is progressing, and when the status has changed to converted, just hit exit. And now we come back into Photoshop, up to File, pick Open, and you'll now see that we've got DNG conversions of both the RAW files in that folder, and that the file which wouldn't open now functions perfectly. So there you have it, 2 quick, easy and highly effective ways of making any RAW file work with your copy of Photoshop.